You can spend 20 years becoming valuable inside a company and still have no business of your own. If paycheck stops, the income stops, even though the experience remains. That is what happens when knowledge stays trapped inside a job unless it is organized into something people can understand and buy. Your earning power remains tied to an employer or your calendar. The opportunity is not to become an influencer. It is to turn one proven capability into a result you can deliver to a specific group beyond your job. And so what we're going to talk about today in this video is specifically for experienced professionals who have built real expertise, but still depend on a salary or one-to-one work for their income. The problem that this video is going to address is how to determine whether your career experience can become a clear paid offer you own without needing a massive audience or simply starting over. Now, in this video, we're going to answer 6 questions in 2 parts. First, we will explain specialized expertise can now support a meaningful business and why valuable experience often remains trapped inside a job. Then we will test whether your knowledge has the mastery, buyer, and outcome required to become an offer. By the end of this video, you will understand why relevance matters more than audience size, how experience becomes a sellable transformation, and how to determine whether you have the foundation for a knowledge business. Now, my name's Langston. I enjoy helping professionals take their experience and turn it into a coaching or online course, basically teaching. It's a great way to be able to give back. What we're going to be discussing here today is all covered in my book. It's a new release. If you want a copy of it for free, simply just comment book launch in the comments below, and I'll make sure to get it over to you. Would love to hear your feedback. So with that being said, let's continue on with phase 1, understanding the opportunity. Phase 1 answers the first 3 questions. Together, they explain why experienced professionals can now reach the right people and why expertise must still be translated before it becomes a business. So question number 1, why can experienced professionals build a business around their knowledge now? Now, the direct answer is that it has become easier to reach people who are already interested in one specific problem. Here's why. Building an online business once appeared to require a large following. That made professionals assume that they would have to become an entertainer or compete with full-time creators. But an accountant, a veterinarian, an engineer, a consultant, a healthcare specialist does not need everyone's attention. That person needs to become useful to a smaller group facing a problem they understand deeply. When content is organized around a narrow interest, relevance can do work that follower count once had to do. So the main takeaway that I want you to walk away with from question 1 is that the opportunity comes from reaching the right people, not from becoming known by everyone. That matters because the goal is usefulness, not fame. That brings us to question number 2. Why can a small specific audience be enough? Let's dive into the direct answer, which is basically that a specific audience is more likely to recognize the problem, trust the expertise, and pay for help reaching a result. Here's why. A large general audience may enjoy the content without needing to buy. A smaller audience can be more valuable when its members share the same problem, and the professional has direct experience solving it. The easiest way to see this is through the fertility specialist. His work was limited by the patients he could see inside a clinic. A focused online program allowed him to help people outside his location without adding a private appointment for everyone served. And so the main takeaway for question 2 is that a small audience can support a meaningful business when the problem is specific and the credibility is real. That matters because fit can be more important than reach. And so that brings us to question number 3. Why does valuable experience still fail to become a business? Let's go ahead and answer that. Question number 3. Why does valuable experience still fail to become a business? The direct answer is that experience must be translated into a transformation people can understand and buy. Here's why. A career develops judgment across projects, mistakes, and decisions, but that knowledge is often scattered across years of work. A buyer cannot purchase 20 years of experience as an abstract idea. The buyer needs to know what problem will be solved and what will be different afterwards. Let's take an example. The restaurant owner in the source had deep experience in industry recognition, yet his broad coaching offer did not sell. The problem was not his knowledge. The offer did not clearly connect that knowledge to a result other restaurant owners wanted. And so the main takeaway from question number 3 is that expertise becomes sellable only when it is organized around the buyer's transformation. That matters because knowledge alone is not yet an offer. With the first 3 questions answered, we can now do a recap of phase 1. Let's go ahead and dive in to phase 1 recap. Let's recap phase 1 recap. Let's recap what we have established in phase 1. Question 1 showed that specialized professionals can now reach people who care about a narrow problem. Question number 2 showed that relevance can make a small audience commercially meaningful. Question 3 showed that experience becomes an offer only when it is translated into a clear transformation. Taken together, this means the opportunity is not to become famous. It's not to make your expertise useful it's to make your expertise useful beyond your job. So I have 2 reflection questions for you. I think this is going to be helpful. Before we move into phase 2, think about these 2 questions. Reflection question number 1. What problem do people already trust you to explain and solve? Reflection question number 2. Who would care enough about solving that problem to seek experience guidance? Now, what I want you to do is I want you to leave that comment below in the chat. This is the way I can go ahead and answer, and other people in the community can answer as well. So let's transition to phase number 2. Now that we understand why specialized expertise can become valuable beyond a job, we can move to the 3 tests that determine whether your experience can support a real knowledge business. Phase number 2, testing business inside your expertise. Phase 2 answers the final 3 questions. Together, they explain how to evaluate your mastery, identify the right buyer, and define one outcome narrow enough to become an offer. So let's dive into question number 4. Have you mastered something people can trust you to teach? Now, the direct answer is that you may have mastery when you have applied the knowledge, produced results, and can guide someone through real obstacles from the experience. Here's why. Studying gives you information, but clients usually need judgment from someone who has seen what happened when theory meets an imperfect situation. A simple mastery test has 3 parts. Have you used the knowledge in the real world? Have you helped another person produce a result? Could you explain the essential process from memory? You do not need to know everything. You need enough tested experience to guide someone honestly through the result you promise. And so the main takeaway from question number 4 is that lived and tested experience creates the credibility a knowledge business needs that matters because the offer must be built on what you can reliably guide another person through. And so this brings us to question number 5. I hope you're still tracking here with me. Who is the specific person your experience can help? Question number 5. Who is the specific person your experience can help? Now, the direct answer is that your strongest initial buyer is often someone facing a problem you have already solved for yourself or repeatedly helped others solve. Here's why. The distance between the buyer's current situation and the result you understand is the foundation of the offer. Your early difficulty helps because you remember the confusion and decisions that created progress. Look for evidence in conversations you already have. Who asked for your advice? What explanations repeatedly helps colleagues or clients? Which mistakes do you regularly help people avoid? Then become precise. Business owners is broad. Independent restaurant owners struggling to become profitable without working every shift describes a very recognizable buyer. And so the main takeaway from question number 5 is that the market begins with a specific person whose problem you understand from experience. That matters because the buyer determines the language and scope of the offer. And so that brings us to our final question, question 6. What one outcome can your first offer reliably deliver? Let's answer that. The direct answer is that the first offer should promise one meaningful result rather than trying to contain everything you know. Here's why. Experts often try to include their entire body of knowledge. That creates an offer that is difficult to explain, complete, and evaluate. The buyer needs the next result that changes their situation, not a full education in your profession. A useful first offer connects one person, one starting problem, and one destination. It can begin as a live prototype. A small first group can show whether people understand the promise, will pay for it, and move forward through your process. And so the main takeaway that I want you to walk away with from question number 6 is that a viable knowledge business begins when one narrows outcome that can be tested before it is expanded. That matters because validation should come before complexity. With all 6 questions answered, we can now bring the lesson together. So let's go ahead and do a phase 2 recap. Let's recap what's established in phase 2. Question 4 showed us that the foundation must be tested experience. Question 5 showed that the market begins with a specific person facing a problem you understand. Question 6 showed that the first offer should promise one clear outcome. Taken together, this means the raw material for a knowledge business is mastery, a defined buyer, and a narrow transformation. And so now I have 2 reflection questions for you. Before we move to the final takeaway, I want you to think about 2 questions. And for those who are new here, you can go ahead and leave a comment in the chat. This way we can all see what you are saying and we can respond accordingly. But the 2 reflection questions are question number 1. Let's go ahead and pull that up. What result have you produced often enough to explain the process clearly? And question number 2 is, what is the smallest meaningful version of that result someone would pay to reach faster? Let me go ahead and say that again real quick, because I know that I could say things a little bit fast. So the 2 questions that I want you to reflect on, and feel free to leave your response in the chat. Number 1, what result have you produced often enough that you can explain the process clearly? This way you can go ahead and teach what it is that you knew, what you know. What result have you produced often enough to explain the process clearly? And then reflection question number 2 is, What is the smallest meaningful version of that result someone would pay to reach faster? Okay? All right, so let's transition to the final takeaway. Everyone's doing a good job sticking in here with me. With both phases complete, we can now return to the problem we started with and state the final takeaway. Here's the final takeaway. Your career experience becomes a business asset only when it is organized into a clear result for a specific group of people. You do not need a massive audience or a new identity as an influencer. You need tested experience, a person whose problem you understand, and one transformation you can deliver reliably. The audience creates the market, the transformation creates the offer, and a simple prototype tests whether it works outside your job. The important caution is that not every interest should become a business. The foundation must be real mastery, a problem people care about enough that they want it to get it solved, and an outcome narrow enough that you can test it honestly. And so your next action is to write down 3 things. Number 1, the problem people already ask you about. Number 2, the specific person who has that problem. And number 3, the first result you could help that person reach. That sentence is the beginning of an offer you own rather than expertise that remains trapped inside your job. So all this, guys, making sense to everybody here? Cool. So let's go ahead and dive into the homework. Again, what I want you to do is I want you to leave your responses in the chat. This way I can go ahead and answer myself or someone within the community. So before you make a decision or take the next step, here are 3 homework questions for you. Homework question number 1 is synthesis. Let's dive into that. We can have, why can a small specific audience be more valuable than a large general audience? Homework question number 2, application. What real world problem have you solved often enough to teach from experience? And then homework question number 3, what one clear outcome will you test before trying to build a larger program? Perfect. So this is going to conclude today's lesson. Once again, everything that we're talking about here today, available in my new book. It is launching. And as a result, giving it away for free. And if you want access to the book for free, all you got to do is comment book launch in the comments. I'll make sure to get you some links over to it. So what questions do we have here? And drop them in the comments below.